2019 Super Showdown pay-per-view has come and gone, but the show's botches will live forever in memories of anyone who watched the show. And in case you're wondering how the show was, check out our comparison video on the good, the bad, and the ugly of Super Showdown. In case you missed it and don't want to sit through 4 agonizing hours, join us as WrestleLamia looks at Super Showdown's 2019 botches. There are many possible causes for a wrestling botch, ranging from ring rust to injury to human error. The environment may have played a role in at least one of the botches, as the WWE superstars were working in extreme heat, which could easily have sapped their energy, made their opponent's skin slippery, or obscured their vision due to heavy perspiration. Botches are not unusual, but as we'll see, some were noticeable, and one match was filled with them. In some cases though, the botches dominated the match, making it unwatchable other than for the type of people who slow down to watch roadside accidents or rewatch Roman Reigns promos. Number 1. Fallyman. Okay, this may have been part of the show, but it bears mentioning as to no one's surprise, Brock Lesnar attempted to cash in his Money in the Bank contract after Universal Champion Seth Rollins defeated challenger Baron Corbin in a short but entertaining encounter. Paul Heyman went to get into the ring but got caught up in the ropes, dropping the briefcase and distracting Lesnar enough for Rollins to fight back Lesnar's attempt. As we mentioned before, this looks like an intentional botch and helped get an angle over well. WrestleLamia is only including this because we can't help but recognize quality bumpmanship, an art that's disappearing at the same rate as that of wrestling managers or advocates. Number 2. Andrade vs Finn Balor. Finn Balor's Intercontinental Championship defense against Andrade was one of the few highlights at Super Showdown, with Balor showing up in his demon persona to fight back Andrade's challenge. This was the kind of match that can make a title match seem meaningful, as the champion fights hard to defend it and the challenger throws everything they can to win it. Although the match featured lots of fast-paced action with high-flying moves you'd expect from both superstars, there was a botch when Andrade performed his signature moonsault, clearly missing Balor. This was only a slight blemish on an otherwise outstanding match. Number 3. Trouble with Trouble in Paradise. Kevin Owens and Daniel Bryan's refusal to work in Saudi Arabia forced the WWE to pit Dolph Ziggler against Kofi Kingston for the Dreadlock Dynamo's WWE Championship. To the WWE's credit, they managed to craft a good angle for Ziggler's return and attack on Kingston, as well as finding Kofi an excellent opponent. The WWE showed a flair for coming up with a suitable replacement for Kofi, rather than putting in a B-level opponent. Ziggler might have been gone from the WWE for several months, but his challenge worked well both as a storyline and in a match itself. Both men have worked a number of matches against each other earlier in their career, and they showed that they are both at the top of their game, all except for the match's finish. For whatever reason, Kofi Kingston flubbed his finisher Trouble in Paradise, missing Ziggler completely, and like the Andrade vs Balor match, it was only a small blemish to an otherwise excellent bout. Number 4. Camera Chaos. The WWE's production team is highly regarded, whether it's the company's ability to travel from town to town with elaborate stage shows, or the high-quality camera work that captures the action every week on WWE TV, as well as its pay-per-views. Something went wrong at Super Showdown as the camera work was not up to the WWE's usual impeccable standards. The camera crew missed key moments during matches and also botched replays, leading fans to wonder whether they were watching an indie show. The WWE production team may have found themselves dealing with an unfamiliar work environment or working condition. Whatever the reason, the camera missed more than 1 or 2 key moments during the matches. That may be good for the WWE as hopefully, at least from their perspective, they missed more botches than the ones included here. And number 5. An Unmitigating Disaster. History is full of train disasters, but nothing can compare to the derailment that occurred at Super Showdown during the Undertaker vs Goldberg match. Like 2 aged engines that should have retired years ago, the 2 superstars clashed in what would have been a dream match 20 years ago, and even a much anticipated match 10 years ago. Sadly, while neither man looked out of shape, their match was full of mistakes, and the bout steadily deteriorated until it seemed that only the mercy of the wrestling gods kept anyone from being seriously injured. As we're about to see, this match could have been due to ring rust, an injury, or a combination of the two. Whatever the reason, it appears both superstars were disappointed with the end result of the match. Most fans are familiar with the wrestling term chain wrestling, but Goldberg and The Undertaker invented a new term with tonight's debacle, chain botching. Each man seamlessly botched one move after another, leading to fans wondering whether both wrestlers had contracted some sort of heat-inflicted muscle spasms. Frankly, WrestleLamia could do a 6-part series on the 8-minute match's many mistakes, but we'll focus on the worst of the worst. Certainly, few fans would be surprised if Goldberg flubbed at least one move during the match, and they certainly weren't disappointed by the number of Goldberg gaffes. Nonetheless, there was plenty of blame to go around. Big Bill managed to goof a headlock takedown, just another reason Lord Steven Regal probably wanted to humble Goldberg in the ring back during Goldberg's early WCW push. Sadly, this was just the opening flub of a 5-star flub fest. Dropping opponents on their heads was the theme of this match, as Goldberg went to lift The Undertaker for the jackhammer and appeared to strain himself lifting the Phenom up. Goldberg clearly didn't get The Undertaker up in the right position, instead nearly dropping him right on his head. The Undertaker made a similar mistake when he executed a tombstone piledriver on Goldberg. While Taker didn't seem to have any trouble lifting Goldberg, something went wrong towards the end of the move and Goldberg's head hit the mat apron. Whether this mistake was due to The Undertaker, Goldberg, or both men is difficult to tell just from watching the video. In either case, it's lucky that Goldberg wasn't injured from that botch alone. There were a number of minor botches from The Undertaker too, as well as another major botch from Goldberg. Goldberg went to lift up The Undertaker, but either ran out of gas, lost his balance, or perhaps both, leading to The Undertaker falling on top of him. As bad as those botches were, we'll explain what happened, as in Goldberg's defense, there's a good reason for his mistakes. Even before the match had started, and Goldberg made his long entrance to the ring, you could see that he had a visible cut on his forehead, probably no doubt smashing the door with his head before the match even started. And during the match, that cut busted wide open when he missed a spear and hit the turnbuckle post with his head. Goldberg bled throughout the match and may have been so dazed that he was unable to execute some of his moves correctly. After the match, Goldberg tweeted, "Knocked myself out and thought I could finish. Love my fans, but let you down. Everyone else that found pleasure, hope you're happy." If Goldberg was injured, that could explain the mistakes, as wrestling moves require both grapplers to pull them off successfully. If Goldberg was concussed or otherwise impaired from an injury, that could explain the many mistakes, even ones that appeared to have been caused by The Undertaker. Hopefully more information will come out concerning the match and or injury that occurred in the ring over the next few days. One thing's for sure though is that Goldberg was not obviously happy with his performance, and neither was The Undertaker. As several news sites have reported, The Undertaker appeared visibly upset after the match ended, with some believing he was disgusted by the quality of the match. It should prove interesting to discover whether Goldberg hurt himself during the match and continued wrestling hurt, or it was a case of ring rust slowing both men down. If ring rust is to blame, both wrestlers as well as the WWE had no business sanctioning the match. While neither man has wrestled in some time, Goldberg back at WrestleMania 33 and Taker at Crown Jewel, the level of ring rust here was indefensible. Frankly, neither man had any business working the match, and the WWE should have arranged some way for both men to prepare better for a match or scrap it entirely. Like Super Showdown itself, the match was a pitiable cash grab by a company that continues disregarding its fan base in order to make a fast buck. There's no denying that the WWE is hauling in loads of cash in the short term, but the company's headed for trouble in the long run as it burns the fans' goodwill. Whether or not you think both men should retire is a matter of opinion, but WWE superstar Matt Riddle couldn't keep his opinions to himself, as he released a video on Twitter giving his thoughts on Goldberg.
Goldberg, you lived up to the hype yet again. You're absolutely the worst wrestler in the business, bro. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
Is this his real opinion, or is Riddle trying to troll the fans, believing that there's some legitimate heat between the two? The Undertaker may have even dropped a hint that it's time for him to retire too, as he liked a comment on Instagram that read, "Can you please stop bringing Undertaker back now? Jesus Christ, after everything he's done for the company, just let him retire in peace." Literally, the match was terrible because those two guys are in their 50s. They can't compete at main event level anymore. You saw how Undertaker was struggling to stand after just 5 minutes, and Goldberg was too weak to even pull off a jackhammer. Just let them live out the rest of their days in peace, or they'll end up getting seriously hurt. And by the way, before you go to the comments, it was The Undertaker's official Instagram page that liked the comment. What did you guys think of the Goldberg vs Undertaker match? Should it now be time to hang up the wrestling boots for good? Let us know in the comments down below, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.